Hello and good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for this webinar to take a look at Dynamics 365 customer engagement. And today's topic is going to be to compare the sales professional application versus the sales enterprise application. And we appreciate you joining us. This is Enterdyne Artist, and today's date is September 18th, 2018. So I have a brief agenda for our time today. We'll just do some quick intros for the presenters. We'll give an overview of just what our topics are. I will spend a good amount of time actually looking at the software today, doing a live demo, and then we'll just have a couple of minutes to wrap up talking about pricing. So as far as introductions, my name is Jonathan Crowell, and I will be the MC today. And I've also got Matt Fonts with me. He's our Director of Services, and he's actually going to do the live demonstration. So we got some quality folks on the line for you this afternoon. So let's just do a quick overview of customer engagement. And I wanted to start just sort of defining what all that meant. So Microsoft recently coined this term, and it's essentially taken its place of the old Dynamics CRM. So it's going to be sales, marketing, customer service, field service, and project service automation are the 5 applications or the 5 areas that are sort of involved in the customer engagement. And again, it's working with your customers, having that ongoing relationship, and whatever type of organization that you have, it would dictate which one of these applications would be applicable for what you guys do on a day-to-day basis. But we're going to focus in on the sales application and specifically the difference between the enterprise and pro. So we're going to break that out here on our next slide. So we'll start off, and let's just talk a little bit about what Dynamics 365 for sales is going to give you, because it's a lot. So account and contact management, that's pretty standard stuff for a CRM solution. Leads and opportunities, so where are you getting your new business from and how you go through your qualification process and actually get opportunities that you can have sales folks working. Turning those opportunities into quotes and then ideally into an actual order. And there's also the ability to generate invoices in Dynamics 365 for sales as well, although it's not an AR solution, right? It's not going to actually do cash receipts. You also can use a product catalog to build out your quotes and orders and invoices. Be able to manage activities. A lot of this is a management tool, so you want to understand who's doing what, when are they doing it, are they doing it on time, where are people falling short, so just activity management and all the different things that your folks are doing. Dashboards, reports and queries. There's a very robust reporting tool or querying tool rather called Advanced Find, and then you can use those to generate charts and graphs, which I've got a nice picture there for. A really nice integration with Outlook and Office 365, being native Microsoft products, right? You're just going to have a tight-knit integration there. Some other really neat functionality is being able to have goals in the system so that you can track how folks are doing towards a goal. Also being able to split up your sales folks by territory potentially, and having little segments of your territories, tracking competitors, how do you do against competitors, maybe strengths and weaknesses of what they're good and not good at so that you can have a more successful sales process. Social engagement is a tool to be able to monitor social listening. So being able, if you're a B2C organization, you can see what your customers are saying about you on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all of the social websites, and then you can actually take actions on those from within CRM to say, okay, somebody had a negative comment, we need to then follow up with them and have a case that we're going to resolve. Voice of the customer is essentially a surveying tool, which is built in and being very flexible on how you can handle the surveys there, and then obviously it tracks to the records in CRM. Gamification is a fairly new thing in the marketplace. Being able to take your everyday activities and put a game behind it so that you can increase competition in workplace environment. And then another big one that's come up as of late is portals. So being able to extend your CRM solution to users outside of your organization without actually having to give them a user license. That's one of those things that everybody's asking for these days. So all that stuff on that list there is actually included in the Sales Enterprise version. So the Sales Enterprise, let's just go ahead and say that's the bigger package. That's where you're going to get everything that you could want in a CRM package. Compared to the Sales Professional solution where we cut out half of that list. Now, you may be saying some of that stuff's not very important to me. I don't need social engagement. I don't need voice of the customer and these other things. And that's the point of this alternate application for Sales Professional, to give some other folks the option of a lightweight CRM, but still having core CRM functionality built in. Now, with that said, we can just jump straight into a live demonstration of what Sales Professional looks like, and hopefully that clarifies just a little bit more of the differences between enterprise and professional. So I'll hand it over to Matt.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I've got a lot of things I want to try to get through today, so I'm going to be moving kind of rapidly through these topics. But what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to show you the Sales Professional tool. And so what we have right here is just a sandbox environment that I actually stood up that's using the Sales Professional application. And it can be a little confusing, and a lot of this is because there's not a lot of information online about the Sales Professional application. But this is essentially the exact same product. It's just like Jonathan just showed. It's a subset of the enterprise version. What we're looking at here, if you're familiar with CRM or you've seen another demo previously, you may have seen this interface before or maybe not. This is called the Unified interface, and that's Microsoft's newest interface that they're pushing for Dynamics 365. That said, the old interface and maybe what you're used to seeing is still here. It's just a different application that's installed inside of Dynamics 365. So I'm looking at the exact same database here, just two different interfaces. Now the Sales Professional, which is primarily what we're going to be looking at today, is using the new Unified interface. So we'll focus on that. And when there's things where we have to toggle back to the core interface, then that'll be pretty obvious, and I'll make sure I point that out as well. All right, so just in terms of navigating the system, you'll see that in the Unified interface, it's the navigation between entities is over on the left. So you can click out and you can see the actual words, but once you become kind of used to using the system, you'll probably primarily just leave this over here on the left, and you'll just recognize the icon. So if I want to go to my accounts, I'm just going to click on my accounts. If I want to go to my contacts, then that's the contact icon. When you're learning it, you can obviously pop this out and see the larger representation. So the primary entity in Dynamics 365 is the account. Okay, so the account is going to be a business that you work with. So let's go back over to accounts here. So it could be a customer, it could be a competitor, it could be a vendor. It's just a business that you work with. So I'm going to go into an account, and I'll just choose one of the sample ones I set up earlier today, and I'll just show you what that looks like inside of the Unified interface, inside of Sales Professional. All right, so this is our InterDyn account, and you can see, you have your actions, your buttons up across the top here. You have your summary information down here. I can see basic information like, what's the name of the account, what's their website address, what's their physical address, what are the opportunities that we're currently working, what are we trying to sell to this customer, what are their open cases, do they have any entitlements, so any support contracts, do we have any open tasks, do we have any open posts, all that shows up here on the timeline. And you can drill farther into these tabs, so I can go in and see different details about the company. So if I want to see their industry, their SIC code, what their ownership structure is like, what's their preferred contact methods, that's all under the details tab here. Now I am going to show you what this looks like also under the standard interface. So it's the same information. It's just organized a little bit differently. And you can see it's all kind of on the same form here instead of having the tabbed layout. And the related information is actually when you up here at the top when you click the down arrow. So I think Microsoft's done a pretty good job here with this Unified interface, and they're really pushing that in the Sales Professional application to kind of make it easy to see what you care about quickly and see your related information as well. All right, so that and all of these different entities in the system, whether it's an account, whether it's a contact, an opportunity, whatever, it all follows that same navigational structure. So if I go into my list of opportunities, and I don't remember what icon that is, so again, I'm just going to click it out here and click on opportunities. And I'm just going to pull up this one for Sales Professional for InterDyn. You'll see it has the same layout. All right, we've got our information here, we've got our different tabs, and we've got our different related fields. All right, so the interface is fairly clean, fairly easy to use, and it works the exact same on the phone as well. So let me show you that really quickly. And this is always kind of dicey to see if it's going to work, so let's see if it'll connect for me. All right, 8438. And here comes my phone. All right, so we can see here, same application, same navigation across here. This is, again, still using the Sales Pro app. You can see up at the top, and then we've got our customers, our accounts, our contacts, leads, opportunities, competitors, quotes, orders, invoices, and cases, the exact same like you would see, in the full application. So I can drill into that account, and then the Interdyne artists, same layout. We've got our summary, we've got our timeline. You can navigate out, see the related information, all in that same interface. And that's kind of what Microsoft's going for with that unified interface, making it work and look the same across all browsers and all devices. All right. Now, for the rest of the demo, and if there's any questions regarding the mobile app, then we can come back to that. But for the rest of the demo, I'm just going to show it in the application because it's a little quicker, so I can cover more content this way. All right. So one thing that I find nice about this new interface, if I'm going back and working just with our account list, there's some actions that Microsoft added in the Sales Professional and the unified interface that I think are really handy. So if I'm in my account list here, I can do a dashboard. So you can actually associate a particular dashboard to a particular entity. All right. So I can say I just want to open up my accounts dashboard. So I'm going to click on that, and that's going to show me these different views. And one thing that they've added in the unified interface is I can now filter this dashboard. So I can break it down. I've got these 2 different industries for my customers, and it's going to filter all 4 of these lists at the same time. So I'm going to filter down just to consulting companies. And I put Microsoft under consulting. Obviously, they do lots of things beyond just consulting, but I can see now I've just got my Interdyne artists and my Microsoft account listed here. All right, and again, this interface works the same across all of your entities. So if I wanted to go and break down my cases by what status they're in, or by SLA, or by whatever, then I could do that exact same thing. I can drill into my cases, and then I can open up that dashboard. And obviously you can define your dashboard for your organization, but you could break that down if you're a support manager or a case queue manager, whatever the situation may be. Then you can show this information right on your dashboard and interact with it. And for those people that have seen the dashboards that were in CRM in the regular interface, I mean, they were cool. They worked okay, but they didn't have the the global filter, and so this is just a real nice step in the right direction. All right. So the next thing I want to show, and again, we're moving pretty rapidly here, so if you have any questions, go ahead and pop those in, and Jonathan will get to them when we take a break. The next thing I want to show you here is lead qualification. So I'm going to go, and I'm going to click this out because I haven't learned all the icons yet. I'm just going to click leads. And I've got one already entered into the system. All right, so I'm going to open Paul Johnson up, and you can see lead looks a lot like an account. It's laid out the exact same way. We've got our timeline, we've got our information, we've got our company that Paul works for, we've got our competitors, our stakeholders, our relationship assistant. But up here at the top is what I want to show, and this is the ribbon that's actually going to dictate how you qualify your leads and how you move them through your sales process. All right, so this is a process that's defined out of the box, but it's very important to understand that the process can be changed and set up specific to your organization. All right, so if I click on this drop-down, it's going to ask me a series of questions that need to be answered before this lead can be qualified. This is the default listing of questions. Is it an existing account? Is it an existing contact? Do they have a purchase time frame? Do they have a budget? For your organization, more than likely, you've got a different set of questions, and that's very easy to configure, and I'll actually show you what that looks like towards the end of the demonstration. But effectively, what this is doing is it's going to allow you to kind of standardize your sales process. Now, if you have more than one line of business in your organization, you can actually change your process. So if you're selling, widgets, then you may have a process that requires you to enter certain information. Where if you're selling insurance, maybe you have a process that requires you to, enter different information. And that's very easy to switch. You just go up here and switch the process to whatever line of business you're working in. All right. So we'll just work with this sample one for now. We'll just assume we've entered all this information, and we've got this lead, and I'm just going to qualify it, and I'll show you what it does. It's actually going to take this lead and transfer all the information into an opportunity, and it's going to link in the contact and the account. All right. So now that I'm in an opportunity, I've got some new fields that I can work. I've got these different stages. I'm currently in the develop stage. Once I get through the develop, then I'm going to propose a solution, and then I'm going to close the business. And you can see, I can click right here, and I can see the new information that I need, is required for me to develop this lead. What is their need? What are we proposing? Have we identified the stakeholders? Are there any competitors? And once we've done done those steps, we can advance it into the proposed stage and then ultimately the closed stage. All right?
Well, you're taking a break, Matt. So a question about, you mentioned you could change the business process flow around, or you can do some tailoring to our business. A question about how customizable is the system. We'll come back to that question here in just a little bit after the live demonstration and talk about the customization capabilities of the software.
Sure. Yep. But to kind of lead into that, it's incredibly customizable. So all of the solutions that Jonathan talked about at the beginning of the presentation under the enterprise platform, those are all built on the core CRM platform. So a lot of people have actually built solutions that do things that aren't even CRM. They do HR, they do membership management, those types of things. They just built it on CRM as an application, as a development environment. So we'll go into that briefly towards the end here. All right. And same deal. So on the opportunity, if I wanted to look and see how are we doing as an organization, I can pop open this dashboard and I can see what are my open opportunities. Likewise, I can go look at system-wide dashboards and I can see if I can remember how to do that. So I click up here at the top and I click on dashboards and I can see sales dashboards across the organization. So if I'm a sales manager and I want to see how we're doing as a company, I can pop that out and it's got the same kind of ability to do filters and drill throughs and all of that. Okay. So Jonathan spoke about this earlier, having the ability to use CRM as a task management system, and that's one of the big values. And what's kind of interesting is the way that you can set up your tasks. Okay, so it's very simple. I could go in as a sales manager and say that there's a new lead that's been created in the system, and I want to go ahead and assign that to a sales executive, and then I could go and I could manually create a task, and I could go and I could manually create an appointment for them to follow up, and I could manually create these things, and all that's fine. It's going to save you any time, not really. But the other thing that you can use with the system is these sales processes. You can automatically create tasks and appointments and opportunity follow-up records as the different characteristics change in the lead. So what I mean by that is, once you've worked a lead for a little bit, maybe you've identified a purchase time frame, then you can have the system automatically send emails to those salespeople. You can have the system even send different documents to the lead. That's one of the things that you can use in the marketing module under the enterprise SKU is you can actually have the system send collateral to leads as appropriate. So that's one of the real values is not only using it as a task management system, but really as an automation tool to be more efficient with your time. So the next thing I want to show is how you would go and manage one of those leads. All right. So if I go in and I look at our leads, and again I'm just going to pull up a new one here. I'll just create a new one because we qualified the one from earlier, right? So I'll just enter myself in. I'm just going to save that record. Then over here in the middle of our timeline, you can do a lot of things. First of all, it's going to automatically show event-driven posts. So as certain things occur to the lead or an account or a contact, whatever record we're looking at, it's going to automatically show these posts. All right. So if it gets assigned, if I assign this to Jonathan up here at the top, it's going to create a post. But I can also just go in and create records. So I can create a phone call. So I can schedule a phone call out, or I can log the contents of a phone call. I can create a task, and that's all going to show in the middle of this timeline. So I'm just going to do a sample once you see what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm just going to do a simple one here, call and qualify. Instead of it being me, I'm going to assign it to somebody else. Actually here, under the owner. So I'm going to remove me here, and I'm going to look up and assign it to Bailey. Okay. I'm just going to save that. Actually, Bailey is not set up, so let me assign it to Matt, which is me, because I have the permissions necessary to do that. All right, so because that was kind of clunky, let's do it again. So I create a task. I'm just going to say call and qualify and save it. All right, so there's our task right here. As that is completed, I can just go in here and just close the activity, and it's going to show kind of the running list of, what's occurred with this lead as you're going through the qualification process. All right. Same thing with documents. So if you have some documents, maybe you've got a OneNote, maybe you've got some PDFs that the customer has sent you, all of that stuff is also going to be accessible. So if I go under the related section here, I'm just going to click on documents. And this is actually using SharePoint or OneDrive. It's the same thing, actually. It's just different interfaces to SharePoint. It's using that as its backend. So right now I'm using Dynamics Sales Professional, and it's got SharePoint linked directly to it via Office 365, and I can just upload documents. All right, so I can just choose a file, and I'll just add this one. Okay, so this is being stored in SharePoint in your Office 365 environment, and it's being exposed just through CRM, if that makes sense. All right. Same thing, if I just want to capture some notes, I could do a note directly inline here, but these are very basic notes, right? If you want to do a more advanced note, you can go down here and you can actually drill directly into OneNote. Okay, so this is going to open up a new tab, and it's going to give you the full online OneNote experience. So you can go in and capture a lot of information, screenshots, audio recordings, whatever you can do with OneNote. I'm not doing a OneNote demo today, but people that use OneNote really like it. And it's going to store that directly in line on that lead. So I can just call this qualification call. And I can just immediately start taking notes here. Okay. And then we're done. I mean, this is obviously all saving in real time in the cloud. Okay. So this is going to store in that same location with our documents. So you'll see, the next person that goes and looks at that lead, they can quickly go and reference or view, those notes. Okay, so there it is right there. So that's kind of neat, I think, but I guess, I like these CRM things, so I find that pretty neat anyway. All right, so that's the OneNote and the document integration to Dynamics 365. If we wanted to create a quote, again, under our unified interface, if we click this out, we can choose our quotes section, and I went ahead and I pre-created all these documents so we weren't wasting a lot of time here. So I'll just open one up, and I've got one on here that has 10 licenses of Sales Professional. And you can go and you can enter different products. You can add products that are from a price list that have different price points, and they can be set up in your catalog, or you can go in and just add in write-in products. And you can do your discounts, and you can do your freight calculations and all that. It's configurable in the system. All right. Now it keeps it links to an opportunity. So this is our Dynamics 365 opportunity that we're working on. And if I go and click on that opportunity, I can see that there's actually multiple quotes associated to it. So I click on the quotes section here. I can see there's one that's closed and there's one that's draft. So if you have several different iterations of quotes that you send out to a customer before you get the right one, and here our Dynamics 365 tracks that history as well. So you may have 4 or 5 different versions of a quote before the customer finally signs it. All right, so I'm just going to drill back into this one, and I can show you, what the document looks like. And this is just a very basic quote format. You can brand it and do everything. Add your logo, your company name, however you want to lay it out here. This is just SSRS behind the scenes. There's actually several different ways you can generate quotes. You can do SSRS, you can do Word templates, you can do mail merge, or you can do a completely custom thing if you want to. So I'm just showing you one example of how quotes are generated. Okay. One thing that's across the system is this concept of ownership, right? So I've got this quote in the system right now that's owned by me. I can assign that quote to somebody else, and that's going to add that to their to-do list. All right, so if I have a quote that I'm working on for Jonathan, maybe I'm tasked with creating a quote for Jonathan, then I can work on that quote and then assign it to Jonathan so that he can review it and approve it. All right, and that's across the system. So accounts are owned by either users or teams. Same thing with leads, same thing with contacts. They're all owned by something. And you can set up security in the system so that your salespeople can see everything. They can see things that are just in their business unit, or they can see things that are just owned by them. And that's just dependent upon how you want to set up the system. But it's very flexible in that regard. All right, so I could, Jonathan could log in right now, and depending on his security, maybe he doesn't even see this quote because it's assigned to me. And then as soon as I assign it to Jonathan, then he's going to see it. And that's true of anything in the system. All right. So one thing that's really cool about the way Microsoft's designed Dynamics 365 is it's very well integrated into their stack of products. And what I mean by that is Office 365. If I go in here and I want to track an email, let me unmaximize this so I can actually see the button here. But I can just click on it. So I just click on Dynamics 365, and that's going to promote that email right into the CRM system. So it's going to show in that same middle section. Let me go back to the account here. So under the timeline, then that email content would just show directly in line in our timeline. All right. Same thing with flows. So anybody who's kind of up to speed on what Microsoft is doing, flow is all the rage, right? So you can create flows, and flows are going to be how you connect your application. So if I had a scenario where I wanted 3 or 4 different things to happen automatically, one of them is going to be pull some information out of our ERP, and the second task on there is going to be send an email out to an operations manager to get an approval, and the third thing could be generate a quote and send it to the customer. Well, all that can be automated under a flow. All right, so even though it's in 3 different systems, Flow has the ability to automate those tasks. All right, so you can see this button up here at the top, and it's just has a flow drop down, and you can create your own flows, or you can see the flows that are already in the system, and those are kind of incredibly powerful. They can do whatever you want in terms of automation. Now there's another type of automation, and again this is really an automation tool that is more inside of CRM or inside of Dynamics 365, and that's called processes. And so I'm going to show you that really briefly. I know we're short on time here. But the management of the processes, you have to go back to the core application. So if I go back to classic mode, then I can go under the settings, and I can go under processes, and I can see all of the processes that are in the system. So earlier when I was showing a business process flow, how we qualified that lead to an opportunity, that's one type of process. So I'll open this up here, and I can show you just the designer as we're a lead, to the different fields that were required when we're developing, when we're proposing, and that's very WYSIWYG editor. Go in and change it. What you see is what you get. So you go and define it, and it's just going to be live in the system. Now the automation piece of that is going to be the workflows. So earlier when I was saying you could automatically create tasks given certain changes in a record, that would be an example of a workflow. And I'll just pull up the designer real quick and show you what that looks like. Sorry, I've got a Band-Aid on my finger. It's hard to type accurately. So I'm going to choose workflow, and then it's a lead, and I'm just going to choose here. It's another WYSIWYG editor, right? So given certain criteria, once this loads up, let's say a record is created or a record is assigned or any attributes change, then you can just perform different operations. Now what's neat about the workflow engine in CRM is it's completely extensible. So if there's certain activities that you want to perform that aren't in this list, like maybe you can create a record, you can update records, but maybe there's something else that you want to do that's not an option in here. If you have a .NET developer, it's very easy to use Visual Studio to create your own custom actions. There's a full SDK, a full API, and that's very easy to do. And there was a question earlier about how do you actually configure the software, how configurable is it? And so I'll show you just one quick scenario. Again, I'm in my classic interface here because this doesn't exist yet in the unified interface. But when I change it in the classic interface, it changes it in the unified interface. But I can just go in, and again, this is not a development task. If I want to create new fields or whatever, I'm just going to pull up my entity. So I'm going to work inside the account here, pull up my form, and I'm just going to use the main account form here, and I can create new fields, move fields around, whatever I need to do. Change the requirement level. I can add JavaScript. I can add custom web resources. It's very easy to do. We could spend an hour or more just talking about this form designer, and I'm certainly willing to do that with anybody who has the interest after this presentation. Okay, so That's all I had on my list, Jonathan. So I'll turn it back over to you.
That's awesome. Thank you. It was actually a good segue into, I think, what our next part of the deck would be, which, so it says pricing and deployment, but we're going to talk still a little bit more about the differences between professional and enterprise and try to outline why the pricing is so different. So this is a similar breakdown as what I was talking about before. It has a little bit more detail than before, and it's maybe structured a little bit more easily to absorb. But one thing that Matt did mention that I did not is case management is now part of both sales enterprise and sales professional. So that is a nice add. If you don't have, you don't need the robustness of customer service, but you still need case management. That's going to be here. But you see where sales professional is missing some of these things that I mentioned earlier, right? Social engagement, gamification, voice of the customer, that stuff's all outlined here. But you also see that there's limitations on what you can do with customizations. Not that you cannot, but you do have maxes that you would want to consider, or you'd want to at least have a conversation with your partner, whoever you're working with to develop your solution, to say, here's what we're trying to do, or can we be in line with these maximums for custom entities and process flows and workflows. Obviously sales enterprise, you're not capped on that, so you can do just about whatever you want to do with sales enterprise. So that's a very robust tool. Now, one other thing that's not explicit here is Matt mentioned Flow. So with sales enterprise, it comes with Power Apps Plan 2, which actually includes Flow. So that license is taken care of. If you were to go with the sales professional license and you wanted to utilize Flow, that's just another license we can get, and it's fairly cheap too. So just wanted to throw that out there since that was a topic of the presentation. But as far as the actual pricing between the two, so sales enterprise and sales professional are both per user per month. Enterprise is $95 and the professional is $65. So a $30 difference. A fairly substantial discount, but you can see that there's definitely some limitations to that cheaper price point. How do you know if that's necessarily going to align for your company, right? So we mentioned you need to have the conversation with your partner to dive deeper into this, but at a super high level. The sales professional application is going to be better for folks that have basic CRM requirements. You're not going to be doing a lot in the system. You have account and contact and opportunity management and sales folks working leads, and that's good enough for you. Maybe you don't have systems in place, or your systems are Excel spreadsheets. Not exactly a CRM tool. On the other spectrum, of course, sales enterprises, if you have sophisticated requirements, you're going to need to be able to customize the system endlessly. That's going to be the area to go with. Maybe your current systems aren't robust enough. Maybe you need more functionality. Maybe you're looking for social engagement and voice of the customer and some of these other solutions that Microsoft has just built in to the enterprise application. That would obviously make sense to go and look at that. Now, I'd like to think that there's actually a scenario where both of these would be deployed in the same organization. And essentially that would be, I'm going to use the word business units here, but it can maybe even just be separate legal entities that are still going to be within the same Office 365 tenant. You just need separate applications for your end users because they're on a completely different business line or business unit than somebody else. So they don't need all the functionality that enterprise has, however others in the organization do. Now there's some caveats to that I want to make sure that I pointed out here. So with the enterprise and professional applications, to actually deploy them both, they must be in separate instances, and that's pulled directly from Microsoft's licensing guide. Okay, so they would actually be separate systems, separate databases, completely separate applications. However, they can be in the same Office 365 tenant, no problem at all. Now, as far as who can access what, so sales professional users, they would only be able to get in sales professional. Sales enterprise could get into both. However, when they log into professional, they're going to get the professional experience. They're not going to see all the stuff that's hiding from the enterprise version. So again, you could have both of these in one tenant. There certainly could be a use case for that. But I think most organizations are going to be one or the other. And one other thing to sort of leave as a last thought is, you say, okay, what if I go with professional? I realize that's not enough for me, and I do need enterprise. Well, hey, that's not actually going to be a problem. There is a process or a migration path to go from professional to enterprise. So as you continue to grow, so can your software. So that is sort of a nice stepping stone to get to the full version of CRM and take advantage of a lesser price point, right? Now that is all that we had as far as our content today. So I hope that it was valuable. If you have questions, comments, you just want to have a conversation with us, feel free to reach out to us, either sending us a email. We also pick up the phone around here, but we have a lot of good content on our website too. So if you're just looking for more videos or blogs, or you want to check out our forum, we've got a lot of stuff out there that may be of value to you. So we'll hold the line just for a moment longer in case there are any last-minute questions that come up, but we certainly appreciate everyone's time today, and we hope to have some conversations with you soon.